Hello, I'm Odin, and I've been having a lot of fun making giant-sized classic space Lego pieces that actually work. So today, I'm gonna make another one. I'm gonna make the classic minifig Megaphone, which many years later became the first Star Wars blaster. So I've made a couple of pieces in the past, and I've really enjoyed making these parts. I've gotten some decent response from it, so I'm gonna make some more today. What I want to make is another part that, to me, was classic space. It was city and firefighters and police as well, because basically this is the loudhailer or megaphone. And then years later, with the first version of the Star Wars sets that came out, this became the Star Wars blaster just by adding another clear stud on the end. I want to make one of these, and I'm going to make it from foam. I spent an afternoon drawing a set of plans to make the Megaphone, including a cross-section of the piece. Everything is still mostly scaled to the grip being 42 millimeters in diameter. I can't find foam dowels exactly in that size, but I can make them by wrapping a 30 millimeter dowel with 6 millimeter thick HD foam. I'll always have a seam to deal with, but that's typical for a foam build. So I have looked online, and I can't find 42 millimeter diameter foam dowels anywhere. They don't seem to be sold in this exact size. So I've gone and chosen a size that specifically I have to make every single time. But I have found that PVC pipe is exactly the right size. I had joked about this the first build, that you could use PVC pipe. Well, it turns out you absolutely can use 1 1/4 inch PVC pipe, that it is within a millimeter of the exact same diameter as what I'm doing. I just still want to use foam, but this gives me a core piece that I can use to build other things off of in order to make sure that this is going to fit. That makes me pretty happy. With the same idea, if I use 1 inch PVC, I only need to do a 4 millimeter wrap around a 1 inch PVC in order to get the same diameter, and it'll still be foam. So much like the antenna on the walkie-talkie, where I use a 1/2 inch piece of PVC and put a little bit of foam around it, I can put just some 4 millimeter foam around this 1 inch Schedule 200, so it's the thin walled, so it's lightweight. And yeah, I can easily make like the lightsaber blade. The lightsaber blade is they call it a 4L blade, right? It's 4 long, it's 4 studs long. It's the same length as a 1x4 brick. So I'm gonna make one of those really quick because I can. First thing I want is to cut the pipe so it's longer than the 409 millimeters that I'm gonna need to scale up the piece to the right size. I use a ruler that I made from 4 millimeter foam to measure just how much I need to wrap around the PVC pipe. Was it 117 again? No. Is it 117 again? 118, so right around the same. Okay, that kind of makes some sense. That's really weird. I cut a strip of 4 millimeter thick foam, 118 millimeters wide. The 6 millimeter foam I had cut earlier was 117 millimeters wide, but it could have been 118 and I would have gotten a better seam. As I sand the PVC pipe, I'm scratching it up so the glue will stick better. I think a little bit about why it's the same size of material. Since the end result is something that's 42 millimeters in diameter, I suppose it doesn't matter what the thickness of the wrapping layer is. The amount to cut is going to basically be the same. I'm sure this would not remain true with bigger difference in wrapping thicknesses, but these two happen to be the same. At my original 30 millimeter dowel wrapped with 6 millimeter foam, giving me a 42 millimeter diameter. This is the basic size that the original Lego piece was built off of. Turns out that a 4 millimeter wrap around a 1 inch PVC pipe is exactly the same size, or close enough that I'm happy to call it exactly the same size. And just right off the shelf, 1 1/4 inch PVC pipe is exactly the same size. So I've now got 3 options for how to do any part on any Lego piece, which is pretty exciting. I'm still gonna use this, I think, for the handle for the loudspeaker that I'm working on, because I want to keep it solid foam. But the idea that I could make the This is almost the right size. This is a couple of centimeters longer for being the Lego lightsaber blade. That 4 long it's the same length as the 4 stud 1x4 brick. So yeah, PVC pipe. All right. This is cool. The seam is bugging me on the solid foam dowel, so I use some Alex Fast Dry Flexible Spackle to fill in the seam. I still have the rest of the build to do, so this should be dry when I need it. I can use the 1 1/4 inch PVC pipe as a guide to wrap 2 layers of 4mm foam into a tube, which makes a hollow Lego bump. So this is going to be this piece, so I'll need to cut it down. So I got this piece made, and I've got this piece made. What I should make next is the main body. And that I can do on the same piece, so I make sure I have enough bore out of the center of it. I need to wrap the pipe again and make the walls 13mm thick. So I'll need 2 layers of 6mm foam. Hey, well, there's a pencil mark, like I've done this before. I should just mark that on my things. I get my first layer of 6mm foam wrapped into a tube. Then I glue on a layer of 1mm craft foam. I need this extra tiny layer to make the walls 13mm thick. Now, I could do with just 2 layers of 6mm foam. I'm sure nobody would notice or care if it was just a millimeter thinner. But I'm having fun, so I want to make it what I think it should be. 68. It's cut to the right length, so I just need to plug the end. I trace the PVC pipe onto some 10mm thick foam and cut a disc that could be super glued in place, capping the end. The tube I made for the hollow stud is cut down to 24mm. Actually, there is enough tube that I can cut 2 pieces at 24mm. And I can use 2 coats of contact cement to attach one of them to the end of the Megaphone body. Oh, there is air pressure. Okay, it's like, wait a minute. Oh, there is air pressure. Okay. Because it's not totally hollow all the way through. Yeah. There is a series of 8 bumps on the body of the Megaphone. I can use these 15mm half-round dowels and just slightly mush them together so they're 14mm wide. I figure out how long I need to make each one, and a single package of foam dowels is enough to wrap the Megaphone. Just 2 of the pieces are going to be a little short. Yeah, those are the short ones. I'm going to need to cut the ends off of a couple of them to make room for the grip anyway. I need to cut a piece off the long foam dowel that I made. I cut it to just about what I need. I don't want to cut a hole in the main body of the Megaphone for fear of changing the diameter. I'd rather glue the grip to the outside. So I added some wedges to the sides of the grip to fit the body better. I mark where the grip needs to go and start applying contact cement to the main body and the 15mm half dowels. The 2 short pieces are glued on first. I can use a cookie cutter to help the ends of the circular cut. After the first 3 wraps, the rest all fit end to end around the main body. I glue the grip on before adding more wraps. It seemed like it should be the next step. And as I added more half dowels, I used a ruler to press the edges down between the bumps. It helps to keep the rings clean looking. And the bitter ends were simply super glued together. I got the last ring to fit exactly where I wanted it to go. I was able to mash the 15mm dowels into the 14mm space consistently enough that it looks really good to me. Now, I may not say it every time, but I do stop and use my rotary tool to round over the edges and smooth out the seams, just giving the cut foam a finished look. All right. That's the entire back half. All I gotta do now is the loudspeaker part. Made a pattern for this, and I don't 100% know for sure that the pattern is gonna work, but I'm pretty confident. I've used this site for making templates many times before, so I'm pretty sure this is gonna be okay. I've got 2 layers because I want to end up making a bell that's going to be at least 12 millimeters thick. It needs to be a little bit thicker. And I mean, I could make it from a single piece of 10, but by putting 2 pieces of 6 together, I can not only make it harder to do, but by having the 2 layers, it'll probably make it a little bit stronger. And so that's really what I'm hoping for. So, inner cone and outer cone. I got 2 different cone patterns because they have to nest. And I'm hoping everything's gonna be okay. And they're also oversized so I can cut them down, sand the edges down flat. I cut out the patterns and traced them onto some 6mm foam. I decided to make 2 sets that'll let me make a mistake on one of them. I only glue the edges with 2 coats of contact cement each. And I try to be very mindful of keeping the seams straight when sticking them together, because I don't want a warped cone. Now, if I wanted to, I could call it quits here, because this looks about right. So I could take this, and I could just glue it on, and pretty good. But it's a little too thin if you actually look at the toy and compared to this. A stud is supposed to fit inside of this, you know. This is supposed to fit inside and it's supposed to click onto something. So the outside area here is supposed to be a little bit bigger than that. That's looking good. That's nice. I glue together one of the inner cones and give it a test fit. It actually worked a lot better than I thought it would. Those nested great. Need an easy way to glue them together. Contact cement is not going to be it. That nested way better than I thought it would. I just need to glue the last one together correctly and I'll have 2. I'll never get the sides to slide together the way I want them to if I use contact cement. So I've decided I'm going to try some super glue. Super glue will stick and set up on EVA foam just like it does on skin. So I have to push the parts together very quickly, because if I stop part way, the glue's gonna set. I was genuinely concerned about how difficult this was gonna be to do. I was sitting here considering, am I gonna have to mix up some 5-minute epoxy and go wander off for 45 minutes while it sets up? I think I've got a lot of hope right now. Maybe a little too much, but I've got a lot of hope right now. I wasn't sure then, but I can say now that this plan worked just fine. As I looked at the now extra cone and the extra hollow Lego bump, I realized I nearly have another piece made. Before I add more parts to this build, I clean the edges of the cones and I sand them flat with a rotary tool and the belt sander. The belt sander does take some finesse to use. The part is okay, thankfully, and the sanded end looks really good. I round the edges a little bit, giving them that finished look. I add 2 layers of contact cement. I always let the first coat dry before adding the second. Having 2 coats really does help the foam stick together much better. I keep using the PVC pipe to be sure the center is as round as it can be each time I glue a new piece onto the build. And I take my time to get the cone stuck on as centered as I can get it. Looks familiar, don't it? Yeah, all right. I still need a little more on the end, but I have enough of a piece that I can start testing the fit with my first Lego torch build and the radio. Messing around with a couple of giant Lego parts is just as much fun as it looks. And the fact that they're working is really, really cool. It does the thing. Okay. I've said this before, I could call it quits here. You know, I really could call it quits here. But I'm supposed to be able to put a stud, for lack of a better term, you know, the pip, the end of the Lego piece. I'm supposed to be able to put the end of the megaphone over one of the studs and have it connect. And right now, this is way too big. And that doesn't happen. So the last piece I need to make is cut a ring that's going to be able to fit into the end of this, that's going to have this diameter cut out in the center so I can plug it, and have a bevel on the outside so it'll fit the inside of the loudhailer. Simple! But it is the last piece. I got more Lego parts. I set my Cos Tool circle cutter to make 80mm circles, which is slightly larger than the opening of the Megaphone. The blade is getting dull, but that's okay, because the circle cutter is still more than capable of cutting through 10mm HD foam. I glue the two discs together and add another 6mm behind them, just because it seemed like a good idea, make the connector a little bigger than the bump. Then I decided to use my bandsaw to cut the angle onto the side of the disc. To find the angle that I want, I adjust the table until the blade is parallel to the side of the cone, which looks to be just about over 10 degrees if my gauge is correct. The plug is almost the right size, so all I need to do is cut from just the inside of the corner all the way around, and I should have a plug that fits. There we go. That is a good fit. That is a good fit. I had originally sanded the edge down a little bit to try and make a better fit, but of course then it slipped too far in and it wasn't flush on the top like I wanted. I glued another 4mm of foam on the front, so this is now 30mm thick, and now it fits into the bell perfectly. What I need to do is make a hole that this will fit. And I've got that. This cookie cutter is right enough. With this piece, there's a bit of a stretch in order for it to fit, which means I can push this through, in theory, and then clean it up with a Dremel, I hope. I had sharpened the edge of the cookie cutter so it'll cut the foam, but eventually there's just not enough cutter for me to hold on to, so I had to use the snap-off blade to complete the cut. And just like before, I used super glue to attach the cones together. The hand cutting with the snap-off blade needs some cleanup work, so now I'm seriously thinking about buying a 59mm and a 57mm hole saw, because these holes need to be cleaner and easier to do. Yeah! 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 That's what I wanted. All right. Let's get this one working too. So I've already almost have enough pieces for this guy. I can make a whole nother piece, right? Because the bell on the end of the Megaphone, which, dearest to Megaphone, is nearly identical to the cone. All I need for this is, well, I have a piece of leftover stud that goes on top. That's a little off, but I'm okay with that. But that's okay, I'm not gonna bother with that. And then I just need to make the ring around the bottom, and I'll have another piece. So let's do that. Now that I have the sizes written down, I can cut two more strips of foam. One is 4mm and the other is 6mm. This makes the correct size bottom ring. I needed to add some duct tape to the cardboard tube for the correct size bump. The PVC pipe that I was using, it's smaller. It's the right size for the rods. My new piece fits on the cone, no problem. And it feels like almost just like that, I got another element. Took a little more time than just like that, but that's what it feels like. It's a double megaphone. Now you can really hear me. Okay, maybe not. Now I'm starting to get a Lego blaster. There we go. Just in case you really need to send somebody a message. This is pretty freaking cool. To do the thing, it does the thing. Yeah, that's the way I remember them working. Well, this is effectively the lightsaber, right? This is It's a little bit long, but this is effectively the as long as a 4 bump, you know, 1x4 brick, right? 4L is what Lego calls it. That is almost exactly the same size as a classic space element. The length of the blade, just the blade, is almost the same as the length of the single antenna. So I think what I should do is make an antenna. So a couple more rings I need to make. It needs to be hollow anyway, so I don't need to plug it up. Fine, see if I'm a couple of millimeters shy, no one's gonna mind. I still just happen to have the cat toy, so I got the end, that's easy. I'll do that first because the cat toy, it's a cat toy. I am so happy that these EVA foam cat toys, or practice golf balls, are 42 millimeters in diameter. It's a perfect fit. Yeah, there we are. Okay. And of course it fits in this one too. No. Well, no, it doesn't. That's okay. I don't think does it fit in that one? That doesn't work, right? Oh, whoops. Well, I've got a problem. I wasn't planning ahead. That was more for the look, and that failed. Okay. No, it failed. I need the rings that go on the bottom. There are 2 rings that go on the bottom of the antenna. And there's 2 parts to this. The one bit, that is actually a stud. You know, it's the width of a regular stud piece. And then this is the receiver end. So I need to make another one of these and another one of these, basically. That's pretty much all it is. These rings need to be taller and overlap so they can stick together. The 59 millimeter ring is made up to be 36 millimeters tall, taller than a normal stud, but that gives me 12 millimeters of overlap. For the larger ring that fits over the stud, which is 42 millimeters tall, yet still has 30 millimeters clearance inside to fit over a 24 millimeter giant Lego bump, or pip, or stud, whatever you want to call it. And it really seriously feels like, and just like that, I have another element. It took time. It didn't just fall out of the sky. Yeah, it did. I got better at sanding giant Legos in the belt sander, and I had no issues with the antenna. But I'm still cleaning up the corners and seams. I set out to make 1 new Lego element. I got 3. And I think they work together. Let's see. If I put this there, and this there. There we go. That's kind of cool. Okay, what I want to do now is I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of putty on some of the seams, and then first thing tomorrow, I'm going to sand everything and paint them with Plasti Dip. Okay, I'm sorry, this is cool. So, yeah. Clutch power and leverage are something that scaled up is a bit different than in the Lego world, but this is working out okay. A few coats of Plasti Dip, and all the pieces are now nice and solid black. I should see if the blue Plasti Dip is close to Lego blue. All the materials in this project I picked up locally. I put a list in the description. So it was never my intent to leave all these parts solid black. The Megaphone, definitely, because even as a Star Wars blaster, it was predominantly available in black. And the radio, yeah, that needs to stay black because they're still basically just black. There's a few gray examples, but overall, these two elements are almost continuously only really available in black. You can find other colors, but basically, this is the color I'm going to keep these. These guys, I really wanted to get gray. I really wanted to spray these gray. But I have to admit, I don't want to spray these with spray paint. Not like I did this. When I made this one, I thought this was where it was gonna end. I was gonna make the ones, put it in the wall, everything's gonna be fine, so I sprayed it with spray paint. It's already cracking a little bit, just a little bit, but the fact that it already is an issue for me. So I want to spray these with acrylic because acrylic will be flexible and it'll survive better. Except the weather outside has not been favorable for spraying acrylic, so that's gonna have to wait. But what I can do is think about, what I want to make next. I want more parts. Of course, that's the whole problem with Legos, right? You get a few, and you just want more because you want to build more stuff. I think one of the things I really want to do next time is the control rod. So another classic space element, it's kind of like a domed piece that has this lever or joystick that sticks out of the top of it. So it's a two-piece element, usually the gray base and the black lever that moves. You can stick them on the back of these all the time and they're used for flying ships and whatever. I think I really want to do that, and I really need to make the clear pieces that go on the ends of the torch or to turn the Megaphone into the Star Wars blaster with a little clear plate. But those are probably going to have to be 3D printed because I'm really not sure how to go about making a transparent part by hand. I thought about it, but I still think 3D printing these pieces is going to be the right way to go. But there's going to be more Lego parts in the future. If there's any particular space Lego elements you really want to see, please leave a comment below. And you know that I'm going to be making more Lego parts, making them out of all sorts of things, because there's going to be lots of different ways you can make giant-sized Legos that actually work with each other. But this is how Odin makes. Specifically, what I wanted to make was a full-size version of the Loudhailer or Megaphone. This part, I think, originally came out in '84, '82. Don't give a history lesson because nobody really cares. I want to thank Paolo Di Ocampo, Random Shinobi, Joey Flores, and all of my Patreon supporters. Patreon members at the $5 and above level get access to my private Discord, which includes weekly games with me, property-related chat, and early access to live streams. My Patreon support is the #1 thing that makes this show possible. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe. Have an idea for something for me to make? Please leave a comment below. And if you make any of these projects, you can send me a picture.